Hey, Josh Altman and Cody Sperber here, and welcome back to another awesome training video where we're going to cover all the different funding options available to residential real estate investors.
That's right. And not only are we going to cover the different available options that you're going to have, but we're also going to dive into the concept of raising private capital, how to use Josh's fund matching strategy to zero in on the best types of money, and we're going to leave you with some recommendations of where to go to get rehab capital.
So to start, let's go over all the different funding options you have available to you as a real estate investor. Now, as we go through all the options, take notes as to the major pros and cons of each type of capital so you can best match the capital with the right investing strategy. Let's start off with hard money. Hard money is used mainly by rehab investors, and this is money lent by a professional lending organization that funds investment properties quickly. Hard money lenders lend based on the value of the asset itself, and in most cases don't really care about your personal credit. They typically want the investor to put 10 to 20% down so you have some skin in the game. Charge you 12 to 20% annual simple interest as a cost of the capital, and have a term length of 3 to 12 months. Some lenders even charge 1 to 4% points to originate the loan, and some are even requesting a personal guarantee. Here are some examples of typical hard money loan structures. Let's say you found a property you wanted to rehab that was worth $210,000 if it was all fixed up. And you could purchase it using my strategies for $100,000. And let's say the property needs $15,000 repairs to get it to sell for $210,000. And the project is estimated to take 6 months to complete from start to finish. Let's go over 3 different hard money loan structures that are common in today's marketplace. One hard money lender may lend on acquisition only and not charge any upfront points for you to get the loan. Your loan terms could look like this: money down 15%, interest 18%, term 6 months, $15,000 money down plus $1,000 doc fee and $2,000 closing costs come to the closing table with $18,000. Monthly payments of $1,200 a month, $40,200 out of your pocket, closing funds plus interest payments plus rehab expense. One hard money lender might lend on the acquisition only and not charge any upfront points for you to get the loan. Your loan terms could look something like this: money down 15%, interest 18%, term 6 months. So $15,000 is your money down plus $1,000 for your doc fee plus $2,000 for your closing costs equal, which means you come to the closing table with $18,000. Your monthly payments of about $1,200 a month, which means $40,200 out of your pocket, which is the closing funds plus the interest rates plus the rehab expense. Another hard money lender in town might lend you money for the acquisition only and will charge you upfront points to get the loan. It could look something like this: money down 20%, interest 8%, upfront points for term 6 months. So it's $20,000 money down plus no doc fee plus $3,200, which is about 4 points up front, plus $2,000, which is your closing costs, which means you're coming to the closing table with $25,200. Your monthly payments are going to be about $533 a month, and $43,399.98 is your out-of-pocket money, which is your closing funds plus your interest payments plus your rehab expense. And finally, a third hard money lender in town might lend you money on both the acquisition as well as the rehab. They don't charge any points, so their loan terms might look like this: money down 20%, interest 13.99%, term 6 months, loan coverage 80% of both acquisition and rehab. So $20,000 is your money down, plus $1,000 doc fee, plus $2,000 closing costs, which means you're coming to the closing table with $23,000. Your monthly payment's going to be $932.67, roughly $35,096.02 out of pocket, which is your closing funds plus your interest payments plus rehab expense plus interest payment on rehab plus 20% of rehab. Now, of course, it sounds like a lot, but you're actually getting money both on the rehab and the acquisition. So it's really not as much money out of your pocket. So the key is identifying which hard money loan structure is best for you and for your project, and go with that one.
Now, the benefits of using hard money are, number one, you get the loan quickly. Number two, you can have little to no experience with rehabbing, but since you purchased the property at a discount and you have skin in the game, the lender will still lend. And number three, hard money lenders know a lot of different people, so having a relationship with them is very valuable. If they like you, they may just introduce you to other investors, contractors, or subs, or they may even give you first shot at buying a recently foreclosed property from them at a discount. The downside, of course, is you can get stuck in a high-interest loan if for some reason the deal turns sideways or doesn't go as planned. You can find hard money lenders through referrals from local real estate investors, local real estate wholesalers, by networking down at the local foreclosure auctions, advertising in the back of local real estate investing associations newsletter, or by Googling hard money lenders in your state. At the end of the day, only use hard money if you have a personal relationship with the hard money lender, if you're confident in the amount of time and money it will take to rehab the property, and there's plenty of spread in the deal, even if you have to go over your cost of capital estimates.
Soft money is defined as asset and credit-based lenders that fund investment properties with typical terms of 9 to 15% interest rates for a period of 6 to 24 months. Like hard money lenders, they'll want you to have some skin in the game, so a 20 to 25% down payment is not uncommon. Overall, soft money is like a hybrid between a true hard money lender and a conventional lender like a bank, and the major benefits are your cost of capital is cheaper than a hard money loan, plus you have a longer term, so you have more time to renovate and sell the property. The only major downside is the time it takes to go through underwriting, but once you do it once, they'll have all your information on file, and of course the second time will go much faster.
Now, we love soft money because of the terms, so we would definitely recommend you going this route over hard money, but only if you can qualify and pass the underwriting process. You can find soft money lenders through investor referrals, asking your Power team members if they know of any good soft money lenders, or by Googling soft money lenders in your state.
Next, let's talk about transactional funding, also known as one-day dough. Now, this is asset-based lending similar to hard money, mostly used by investors flipping short sales or bank-owned properties. Now, the reason is many banks restrict your ability to assign or double close a property that they're selling as a short sale or an REO. They force you to have to physically take down the property, which eliminates you being able to wholesale it. Now, this is a major challenge, especially if you don't have the ability to pay cash for these deals. So clever investors came up with a workaround by using transactional funding, which in most cases funds 100% of the transaction, so you don't have to have any money to pull these type of deals together. Now, many hard money and soft money lenders, they also provide transactional funding because it's much less risk to them. Here's how it works. Imagine you find a short sale on the MLS that you believe is a great deal. It's offered for $100,000, and you think that you can get the bank to accept $70,000. Once the property is repaired, its after-repaired value is somewhere around $160,000. So, you make your cash offer, your investor-friendly real estate agent spends the next few months negotiating with the bank on your behalf, and one day you finally get the call that the bank is about to accept your offer of $70,000. Great news! Now, it's time to quickly go out there and find a cash buyer because you really don't have $70,000 to take down this great deal. So you ramp up your marketing and you blast out the property for, let's say $89,000. And a cash buyer steps up, raises their hand and says, I want that deal. At this point, you have all the moving pieces in place to use transactional funding on this deal. So you call your transactional lender and you let them know what's going on. You need a loan for just a couple of days so you can flip this short sale to your back-end cash buyer. Your lender lends you 100% of the money that you need because they see that the cash buyer's funds, it's already in escrow, so they have little to no risk on the loan. The property records in your name, and immediately the closing process begins for the flip over to the back-end cash buyer. A couple of days later, the deal is done. Bada boom, bada bing, right? Cha-ching. Your transactional lender gets all their money back plus interest. The cash buyer got his or her smoking hot deal, and you get to keep the spread between what you bought the short sale for and what you sold it for. Everybody wins thanks to one-day dough.
Great example, Cody. It's cool how creative and clever investors have gotten to overcome obstacles. It's way more fun than the traditional ways people have used leverage to buy houses in the past.
Yeah, and speaking of conventional loans, let's review the most common conventional financing options and zero in on the one that investors could use to finance their investments. Now, essentially, there are three main buckets of loans available to home buyers. They are government-backed loans like FHA, VA, and USDA. There are conventional loans like Fannie and Freddie backed loans, and there are these other ones called portfolio loans, which are essentially in-house loans given by individual banks. Now, because of the rules, and you should check with your investor-friendly mortgage banker for updated standards, FHA, VA, and USDA are only typically given to homeowners planning on occupying the property. This eliminates these as options for real estate investors. Portfolio loans are typically only given to owner-occupants as well that are doing large jumbo loans on expensive properties or loans on oddball properties like non-warrantable condos, that kind of thing. This leaves conventional, which, if you're buying and holding property for a year or more, is the main option we would recommend to a real estate investor. Backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, which are two government-controlled organizations, conventional loans typically require one appraisal and 20% down if you're doing non-owner-occupied loans.
Yeah, like Cody said, getting a low interest rate conventional loan from a traditional bank, it makes a lot of sense as long as you plan on holding the property for at least a couple years. Your monthly payments will be lower, which will increase your overall cash flow. Now, I have done this option with some of my higher-end fix and flips, which take about a year to complete. So if the spread is big enough and the project is going to take a long time to complete, you should also check out this financing option as well. Now, let me say this. Up to this point, we've been talking about the more traditional ways to fund your real estate deals. But in many cases, I use creative techniques to buy houses with little or no money down. Here's what I mean. Many times when I sit down with a motivated seller, I lead off with an all-cash offer. If the seller is unwilling to sell at a discount but is extremely motivated to sell, then I begin laying the groundwork for my backup creative terms offer. By reaching into my creative financing bag of tricks, I can turn a dead lead into a win-win profitable deal for both me and the seller. One great option is a subject-to transaction, which I focus on if the seller has a mortgage on the property. And the other is an owner financing option, which I focus on if the seller owns the property free and clear. Let's discuss each one individually. A subject-to refers to the concept of taking over control of a property by having the seller deed you the title while at the same time leaving their existing loan in place. Now, a seller would allow this to happen if they were extremely motivated to sell, but couldn't sell at a discount because they owed too much on the property. By selling subject to, they get immediate debt relief from having to make their mortgage payments. They avoid commissions and closing costs. They sell their house as is, and they can avoid damaging their credit from doing a short sale. So essentially, we're stepping in and saving the day. They deed us the house, and from that point forward, we are responsible to make their mortgage payments to the lender. So we quickly clean up the property, rent it out, and keep the difference between the mortgage payment and the collected rents. We don't ask the bank for permission as we're not assuming the seller's loan. We're simply making their payments on their behalf. You would only do a subject to if you were stepping into good loan terms and if rental rates in the area created a positive cash flow scenario that was big enough to take on the risk of owning a new rental. From the investor's perspective, there are many benefits to doing this type of creative transaction. You don't have to get a new loan or pay any financing fees. You get to step into attractive financing. You don't have to use your credit. You can close quickly. Most of your competition doesn't understand these type of deals, so you'll have an easier time dominating your local market. You feel good because you helped a seller in need while still making a profit, and you get a great cash flowing rental property added to your portfolio. And just to be clear, when I first heard about this strategy, I'm not going to lie, I was a little skeptical. I asked myself, is this even legal? Maybe you were wondering the same thing. Well, we're all here to tell you that it absolutely is. A property done subject to does not violate any criminal codes, and the only gray area is whether or not the seller is violating their lender's due on sale clause, which is an acceleration clause in a mortgage document that gives the lender the right to demand payment of the remaining balance of the loan when a property is sold or transferred. Here's what a typical due on sale clause looks like. It says something like, if all or any part of the property herein is transferred without the lender's prior written consent, the lender may require all sums secured hereby immediately due and payable. So if the seller's transferred the property to us, wouldn't that automatically trigger the due on sale clause? Well, not necessarily. Typically, the lender will only call the loan due if interest rates rise significantly, and they start auditing their books to see which loans they can call due, because they can then turn around and lend that money back out at a higher rate. Or if the mortgage payments are not being made and the loan goes into default. And the good news is, if they do accelerate, you do have options. You could call their bluff and fight back. You could borrow from a private lender and cash out the bank. You could go to another bank and refinance out of the accelerated loan. After all, you will have a track record for making your payments, which will look good when trying to qualify for another loan. Or you could simply deed the property back to the seller and walk away. At the end of the day, it's the seller, not the buyer, that has the relationship with the lender. As the buyer, you are not required to notify the lender of a deed transfer. As long as you do not coach the seller into making false statements, and you make the monthly payments in full and on time, subject to transactions will remain perfectly legal. After all, if the seller doesn't sell creatively to you, well, what other choices do they have?
Now that you know what a subject to transaction is, I wanted to clarify a few things. I want to do a candid interview with Cody here because he happens to be an expert when it comes to creative deals.
That's right.
So, Cody, why would a homeowner do a subject to type of deal?
That's actually a really good question, and it really just comes down to motivation. They have a lot of motivation because of something going on in their lives that's causing them to want to sell, but maybe they're in a situation where they can't sell at like a really big discount. Maybe, for instance, they owe $95,000 on a house that's only worth $95,000, or maybe it's even worth $90,000, or maybe it's only worth $100,000. But they're in that range where if they had to sell, they would actually either take a loss or maybe find themselves in like a short sale scenario, something like that. And they don't have a lot of available funds, right? And they have to move out of state a lot of times, okay? So they're moving far away from the property. And they find themselves in a situation where they don't want to be a landlord. And when all of these things line up, plus we have a situation where that homeowner has a good loan, okay, meaning like it's not an adjustable mortgage or anything like that. It's a conventional loan, low interest rate, good terms, in other words. As a real estate investor, we can come in there and create a situation that's like a win-win deal for them. And I do this a lot with military families. You know, a lot of times they might move into town near a military base, and they are living in the barracks, and one of their buddies shows up that used to live in the barracks, and they're like, I just bought a house. This developer's building out near the base, and he's got these amazing deals for military members. And so screw living in the barracks, let's buy a house. And I can do that for almost the same price that it would cost for me to rent an apartment or something like that. So these men and women in our military, they go and they buy a house with these really great developer discounts. And then 2 years later, they get relocated. And all of a sudden they find themselves in a situation where they don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to carry the debt on this house. In fact, they want to move to another place, not even think about this property ever again. And so here we come, savvy real estate investors, and we structure a deal where, like I said, it's a win-win. They don't have to worry about the debt. We get to step into a good loan structure because, for instance, in the military, a lot of them use VA loans. Right. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves with a great rental or even we find ourselves with a great rental. We can structure these deals really, really fast. We don't have to put a lot of money down to get into them. Everybody wins.
What exactly are your options once you get a subject to deal locked up?
That's another good question. And you have choices, right? So we're using our creativity to structure these deals. Once we structure them, we have pretty much a couple options that are actually really sexy to a real estate investor. One, we can wholesale it. Okay, just like any other wholesale deal, we could turn around to a landlord cash buyer or just a landlord that has some cash, but they don't want to spend all of it to go buy a new rental property. And we could say, look, give us $5,000. You could step into our shoes. We'll step out and you can take over this rental property. So that's one option. The other is it's a wealth building play. You can actually add these things to your rental portfolio. Mm-hmm. You're locked in on really good rental term or loan terms. So you can hold this thing for cash flow. And if you structure these deals the right way, you get paid like 3 or 4 different ways. You can get paid on the cash flow by holding it as a rental. And you can also get paid on the back end if instead of just doing a standard rental, you do, let's say, a lease option on the back end. Well, you're going to collect an option deposit for that tenant buyer to rent the property from you. So now you got your cash flow, your monthly cash flow spread, plus you got the option deposit, which could be, significant. You can maybe get $2, $3, $4, $5,000 as an option deposit. And then as your tenant buyer pays down the mortgage over time, eventually at some point you sell it to them. Now you have another big payday on the back end with all this equity that you created, and if the market goes up, you ride that wave too. So overall, these are really sexy deals that your competition really doesn't understand. And if you're savvy enough and you can put these deals together, no lead gets left behind. You can make money from every type of lead.
Huh. But where do you go to get all the paperwork?
That's another good question. Obviously, if they're a mentoring student with us, we can give them the paperwork. If you want to go find it on your own, you just need to go and either network with other real estate investors that are doing these types of deals and ask them where they got their local paperwork package. A lot of times it comes from a local real estate attorney that is savvy and understands working with investors in these creative types of deals, and you can buy it from them.
Got it.
Cool. Well, at the end of the day, these are the type of deals that you want to do. Now you are empowered and you understand that when you come across one of these types of deals where the seller wants to sell, they're motivated, but they can't sell at a discount, now you know what to do.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it really seems like a win-win for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
So if the subject to is your go-to option if the seller has a mortgage on their property, owner financing is going to be your go-to option if the seller owns the property free and clear. Essentially, with owner financing, the seller plays the bank, placing a lien against the property at close of escrow. This is also sometimes referred to as a seller carryback. Now, common terms include 5 to 15-year durations with a lump sum payment at the end. Interest rates can vary all over the place, but should be negotiated down as low as possible.
The great thing about doing owner financing is there are an unlimited amount of ways you can structure these types of deals. Now, for example, on cheaper properties of, let's say, $50,000 or less, you can structure a deal where you tell the seller something like, look, I know you want $50K for your house, and I'm willing to pay you $30,000 cash for it. But if you're willing to carry back the paper, I'd be willing to pay you exactly what you're asking for, the $50,000, because I know it's going to save me from having to come out of pocket so much money. So I can put down, let's say, $2,000 cash into the deal. You seller finance me the other $48,000, which we're going to amortize over 15 years, and I'll make you monthly payments until the loan is paid off. By positioning it in this way and using the phrase until paid, I'm essentially saying that I want a 0% interest loan from the seller. And trust me, you would be surprised at how many motivated sellers would be willing to do this for you if you paid the price that they're asking. Or on higher priced properties, you can structure a deal where you agree to pay the seller what they're asking for, or even more than what they're asking for, and put zero money down and have them carry back a loan where you amortize the amount of the loan over 30 years, but balloon it in, say, 5 to 7 years. This is really good on those higher priced properties where the seller is a little bit older. This lowers your monthly payment low enough to cash flow the property, but gives the seller comfort knowing that they're only going to carry back the loan for 5 to 7 years. At the end of the day, there are literally an unlimited number of ways you can structure an owner finance deal.
And to finish up the creative financing options, we definitely need to talk about wholesaling. As you saw in the last module, wholesaling is simply a creative way to fund your deals. You serve up a deal on a silver platter and get paid either by an assignment or a double close. In other words, it's not you that has to have the cash to purchase the real estate. It's your back-end cash buyer that ends up funding the deal. All right, it's time to transition to the most important topic in this video, which is raising private money. What do you think so far? Are you gaining a better understanding of all your funding options? Good. Well, what we're going to talk about next is by far my favorite funding strategy of all, and that's raising private money. And just like creative deal structuring, Cody here is an expert at raising private capital.
That's right. And just to get everybody on the same page, private money lenders are essentially anybody with lazy money that's not earning the high rate of return that they could or should be without taking on too much risk. These are your quote, end quote, financial friends. Private money lenders are, in most cases, not professional real estate investors. They are simply relationships that you have or create, and because of this, you have the ability to structure any private money loans in a variety of ways. You can have longer terms, lower interest rates, or even avoid borrowing altogether and simply partner on a deal. In our opinion, private money is the absolute best type of money because of the flexibility that you're going to have to structure win-win-win deals. And it's going to be a huge win for the lender because unlike the stock market, which is risky and turbulent, unsecured, not tangible, and a lot of work unless you pay somebody high fees to manage your investments, being a private money lender has a lot of easy to see and feel benefits. Their money is secured to a tangible asset that's purchased well below market value and is insured in case of emergency. Their returns are fixed and known, and they don't have to do any work whatsoever except for cash their check. You, the professional investor, along with your team, you're going to handle all the paperwork and management of the investment. And the good news is there are potential private money lenders all around you, and they have lazy money just waiting to be lent on all of your good deals. Could be a friend or family member, a referral from your real estate attorney or closing agent, or another power team member for that matter. Somebody that you networked with in the past or that you met at a business event. Maybe somebody you met down at one of those IRA custodian lunch and learns that companies like Equity Trust and Entrust put on. Or simply the guy down the street that owns a very small business that you frequent often. Anybody with lazy money can become a private money lender, and here in a minute we're going to dive into the psychology and approach to use to get these people on board with you. But first, let's take a look at the two ways to structure private money deals, equity versus debt. Now, when your private money lender is acting as an equity investor, they're not actually giving you a loan. Instead, they're partnering with you on the deal in order to get a portion of the profits. Could be a 50-50 partnership, a 70-30 partnership, or any other deal structure that you guys work out. Now, these types of deals, they're great if the capital provider doesn't want to be a lender and will only lend or fund on the deal if they get a bigger piece of the pie. The benefits of doing it this way are, number one, you're going to share the risk with the funder, and number two, you don't have to make monthly payments, so if the project goes longer than expected, your cost of capital won't eat up all your potential profits. Now, the downsides are you're going to have less profit and you're going to have less control. On the flip side of this coin is the debt lending, which is where the private lender is actually acting like a true lender. They're going to give you the money. Their money's going to be secured with a note and mortgage or a note and deed of trust, depending on which state you live in. And like a typical loan, you're going to pay a specific interest rate over a specific period of time. The benefits of borrowing instead of taking on an equity partner are, one, there's going to be way more profit for you, hopefully, and two, you're going to remain in control of your deal because you're not going to have a business partner to deal with. The downsides are, one, you're going to take on more risk because if the project takes longer than expected, your cost of capital could eat through your potential profits. And number two, you're going to have to make monthly payments unless you structure a deal where you pay some sort of big balloon payment at the end of the deal and let the private money lender's interest accrue.
And the cool thing is, because the structure of these private money loans is so flexible, you can do one, the other, or a combination of both. But here's the key to raising private capital. You have to understand and abide by the rules of the SEC.
Yeah, there's this general solicitation rule out there that you need to know about, which essentially says that you can't just go around generally soliciting money from strangers. You have to have a personal relationship with the individual. So as a rule, I always ensure that I never ask anyone to become a private money lender for me unless I've had at least 3 different conversations with this person that has nothing to do with borrowing money, and I've known them for at least 45 days. A great approach is to take the education angle instead of asking somebody to borrow money. I say things like, hey John, would you like to learn the secret to earning a higher return on your money than investing in the stock market? The best news is this is backed by real estate, and I could spend some time with you breaking everything down in detail. If John shows an interest, I say great. I set an appointment to discuss, then change topics to something other than borrowing money. Then before our meeting, I'm going to send him a couple of friendly reminders, and I'm going to send him an actual written reminder letting him know that I'm excited to share these different money-making opportunities with him, and I can't wait to put some deals in front of him so we can both make some dough. Then I meet John somewhere quiet, and I present him with my private money lending program using a very professional-looking PowerPoint. Now, the reason I do this is because I want anybody thinking about lending us private money to leave our interactions feeling certainty. With certainty, a lender can mentally get to a place where they feel good about working with me and my company. I literally want to wow them with my knowledge of the market, business systems and processes I have in place, and game plan for making us both a bunch of money. My strategy for raising private money starts with what I say on day one, the letter and the reminders that I send them to confirm our appointments, and the presentation that I put on during our meeting. This is how savvy real estate investors like Josh and I raise lots and lots of private money, and you can use this money to literally explode your businesses and take it up to that next level. And here's the key. During the meeting, we are not asking to borrow money. Instead, we're simply setting the stage for some time in the future when we come across an amazing deal that we can come back to the potential private money lender and get a quick pass or play decision. That's it. Lay the groundwork and line up the money for a future deal. And then when a smoking hot deal comes across your desk that you want to take down and, let's say, rehab it, I'm going to go back to the private money lender and get a quick yes or no on the loan. It's simple, right? And in most cases, we pair one deal to a single private money lender, which is the cleanest and safest way to structure these deals. But sometimes you may find yourself having to put multiple lenders onto a single deal. When this happens, things get a little more complicated because you're going to have to jockey position of the lenders and put them all in a line with, let's say, the one lending the most money going in the first lien position, then the one lending the second most amount of money in the second lien position, and so on. This is a more advanced deal structure, so we recommend you sit down with a local real estate attorney prior to doing a deal like this for the first time and just asking them to help you with all of your paperwork. And once they are in, we structure the deal that makes sense for both of us. Here are some typical private money terms. 1, no upfront fees or points. 2, having between 6 to 14% annual simple interest rates depending on the riskiness of the deal. Obviously, the lower the better. 3, having the term length be somewhere between 6 months to 5 years in length. 4, interest payments paid monthly or accrued and paid at the end of the term. Obviously, if you can get them to accrue it and pay it at the end of the term, that's even better for you. And 5, the loan is secured by a note and mortgage or a note and deed of trust, depending on which state you live in. And 6, there are no costs or expenses to the private money lender. Any closing costs or any other fees are going to get rolled into the loan. Once me and the lender come to terms with the deal structure, I would simply have my investor-friendly closing agent create all the paperwork needed to secure the loan. These docs would include a promissory note, a mortgage or trust deed, proof that I have hazard insurance policy on the property, with the lender listed as a lost payee, and a mortgage insurance policy. Rarely, but it does sometimes happen, will I ever sign a personal guarantee for a loan, but I would do this only if I was absolutely certain that there was so much spread in the deal that even if shit hit the fan, I would literally still come out okay.
At the end of the day, remember that you're not just borrowing money. You're presenting these financial friends with an amazing money-making opportunity. Now, when you meet with them, spend time building rapport, explaining the process, presenting and handling objections, and prepping them to line up the funds once you have a specific deal on the hook. Now, you're going to do your part by hunting down the best discount and money-making opportunities, and they need to do their part by being prepared with the funds and making a quick decision when you make that call. And listen, if you're sitting there right now with your arms crossed saying, "No one I know has money," I want to let you know that you are dead wrong. I thought the exact same thing when I first started. I had no money. My parents had little to no money, and I couldn't think of a single person initially that I could go to that was going to have money. Now, I hesitated because I felt really insecure about asking to borrow money from friends or family members or people that I barely knew. But my mentor, he worked with me, and he educated me, and he helped me just reframe my thoughts. And before you knew it, I felt comfortable and confident that I could go out there and raise some dough. This is the exact same thing that Josh and I are doing right here. Now, the funny thing is, I started talking to more people in my circle of influence about what I was doing, and they could see the passion I had for it. And more people started opening up about their unhappiness with their current returns that they were getting from the stock market or other investments that they had. One day I was talking with a buddy of mine named Brian, who never in a million years would I have thought came from money. And after explaining my program to him, he told me that I should speak with his dad, who happened to live in West Palm Beach, and he was very, very rich. Now, a few weeks later, after meeting with the dad, I lined up a line of credit for over $2.5 million, which literally catapulted my ability to buy foreclosures down at the foreclosure auctions. Look, all I'm saying is you never know who has some lazy money laying around. It may be your Aunt Linda with $50K stuffed in her mattress, or it might be one of your coworkers' dads who happens to be a Wall Street tycoon. You have to get out there and ask, because if you don't, one of your competition is going to take what's rightfully yours.
Awesome stuff, Cody. Now, I want to finish this video by answering some of the most commonly asked questions about private money, giving you a couple of suggestions as where to go to get hard and soft money, and leave you by sharing some of our biggest lessons learned about funding over the years. Let's start with answers to common questions. Now, you may hear these questions come up from anyone you're looking to get funding from. What if housing prices suddenly drop? This is actually the best thing about investing in real estate. You see, people always need a place to live. We are prepared to hold all of our investment properties for 5, 10, or even 15 years if the market were to take a downturn. When we purchase our properties, we analyze them for multiple strategies. Based on the current market conditions, we will either direct them into our buy and hold portfolio to generate rental cash flow or flip them for a quick profit. Number 2, will I be able to easily track my money? Yes, we do not pool funds. Your money will be tied to a particular piece of real estate through a deed of trust or a mortgage. Number 3, how long will my funds be invested in at a time? Well, the answer is the project will always determine the term of the loan. Upon entering the loan, we'll let you know the plan for the property and how long you should expect your money to be out. The standard fix and flip time period is 6 months. The standard build time is between 6 to 12 months, and rentals can be up to 30 years depending on the situation. Based on your investment goals, we will choose different projects for you to invest in. Number 4, why don't you utilize bank or institutional funding? Well, that's a great question. The main reason why we don't utilize conventional financing on our investment deals is that we spend lots of money on finding the absolute best deals possible. With that said, we need to be able to close quick on deals that meet our strict purchasing criteria. Not only that, but we tend to do multiple deals at a time, and each bank has their own particular restrictions and rules on how many loans a company can have at one time. And number 5, the last question, if I want to start lending money, how do I get started? Well, the answer is, it's actually a very simple process. The first step is for me to get an understanding of what your investment goals are. And then from there, it's just a matter of finding the correct deal to get you your desired return. These are just a few of the most common ones, so we thought it'd be good to review these answers so you can be prepared. And just to hook you up, here are a few of our favorite hard and soft money lenders. Now, we do not have any affiliation with any of these lenders, so please do your own research before working with any of these companies.
So the first one is Lending Home. Now, Lending Home is pretty much a soft money lender, and the pros are it's really geared towards investors, and you could borrow up to 80% of the LTV of the acquisition. Sometimes they'll even lend on the rehab, and they can get these loans done in 7 to 10 days, especially if you've already used them once before and they already have your paperwork on file. Okay, you can borrow anywhere from $25K up to $750K, and the major downsides is there's only a few states that they're available in. Right now it's California, Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Colorado, Washington, Tennessee, Michigan, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and West Virginia, but they're adding new states all the time. Now the next one is Patch of Land. Patch of Land's kind of unique because it's a crowdfunding site. The pros are you're going to get funding as little as 7 days and extremely competitive interest rates. Loans are from $100K to $1 million. Now, the cons are it's not available in every state, and they don't do Nevada, Arizona, South Dakota, Minnesota, or Vermont. Prosper is another company that's well known out there. They do unsecured loans, moderate interest rates as low as 6%. It's reasonable, fast funding, 1 to 5 points, 3 to 5 year terms. The cons are they only have a limit of $35K. So this is really for really cheap properties, almost like business line of credit type of funding. Another one's called Realty Mogul. It's another one of those crowdfunding sites. You're able to borrow funds for a few months or a few years. The cons are you need to join to see more details. So you might want to investigate them and see what they're all about. iFunding's another site. You can fund up to 90% of the deal. The ideal range is of the deal size is $75K to $350K. The cons is it does take a while. They're not very fast to be able to actually raise the funds. All right. Tempo Funding is definitely one of our favorites. This is a true hard money lender, and they lend up to 80% of the purchase price, balloon payment options, deferring points, deferring interest rates, fees, all that stuff. They're really flexible. They also provide rehab financing up to 70% of ARV. So we really love Tempo Funding. The only cons are, since it's hard money, they do charge 2 to 4 points up front, 10 to 14% interest rates typically, and a $9.95 doc fee. Rehab financing is going to be another 4 to 5 points, 15 to 18% interest rates, so a little higher interest rates because it's a riskier part of the loan, and a $9.95 fee. We hope these suggestions help you next time that you're thinking about lining up some rehab funds, and obviously just Googling and doing all the other tips that we recommended to you of finding local hard money and soft money lenders in your area is also a great idea.
At the end of the day, match any potential funding options to your investment strategy and pick the one that is best for you and for your lender. And now that you have a better education on how all the funding options work, it's much easier to see which funding strategies work with which investment model.
Well, to wind this video down, Josh and I wanted to leave you with some words of wisdom. These are hard lessons learned over the years, and trust me when I say this, you're going to want to write these down. To start, never, ever pull money from multiple investors. That's a big no-no unless you have the proper licenses. Keep good records at all times. The last thing you want, trust me, is to have an issue arise and you can't find all the paperwork to a deal. Pre-screen any potential private money lenders prior to doing an actual in-person meeting. The last thing you want is to waste your precious time with somebody that has no dough to lend.
Yeah, and never touch any of the funds. Have it go through your third-party closing agent, and also avoid the word guaranteed when initially starting the relationship with a potential lender.
That's right. Do as much debt financing as possible and don't promise certain rates of return until you've established the 45-day and 3-touch relationship rule with the lender.
And when it comes to borrowing hard money, only use it if you are rehabbing for a huge payday. In other words, never use hard money with an average deal. Ever. Trust me on that one. It was an expensive mistake. Also, spend the time to build a great relationship with your hard money lender, and by doing so, they'll not only lend you money on your deals, but allow you to leverage their relationship as much as possible. And lastly, make sure you read the note you sign with them and understand and plan for any extension fees. Sometimes projects run long and you have to be prepared if they do. And the best advice is to start lining up your capital now, even if you don't have a specific deal you need money for. The key is putting everything together early. That way, when the day comes, you can quickly outmaneuver your competition and get the deal.
Well, we covered a ton of information about funding deals and raising private capital. Now, it's time to put this new knowledge to use and begin lining up some financial friends.
That's right. And below this video is our private money presentation. Download the PowerPoint, personalize it, set up some meetings with some potential private money lenders, and use the presentation to impress them into giving you some dough. We know that if you do everything that we talk about in this video, you will have the ability to fund all of your future real estate transactions.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all we have for you in this video. Dig into the rest of the information in this module, and we'll see you on the next training. Bye for now.